Tonight I'm going to talk about how a whole family had to barricade themselves inside their homes for an entire night to escape from unknown creatures. Now, this is the Palmyra incident, and it's well documented. It happened back on Memorial Day weekend of 2007, and this was the Martin family. They had recently moved to Palmyra, Maine. Now, Palmyra, Maine is just about 100 miles from Mount Katahdin, the northern terminus of the Appalachian Mountains. So it's in the sticks. And they moved into this 100-year-old farmhouse, over 100-year-old farmhouse, that was just surrounded on all sides by dense forests. And they didn't have any problems at first. It went by well. But one night, the older son was visiting, and he and the father both saw flashlights. What they thought was flashlights out in their woods. So they thought it was trespassers or poachers, So they went to investigate and see what was going on. Well, no matter how close they thought they were getting to the lights, they would kind of move and be in a totally different area. And not only that, they got the feeling that they weren't alone out there, and they kept hearing something bipedal walk. But it was in earshot, but they couldn't see it. It was just out of their line of sight. So that was the first incident. Now, the second incident is that the Martins had a teenage daughter, and her boyfriend one night were walking the family's dogs. And these dogs were very well trained. They were hunting dogs. But as they were walking them around the property, these dogs just both broke loose from their leashes and took off. Clearly, they were chasing something, and they would not follow any commands. They weren't listening for the commands at all. So the boyfriend and the daughter had to go out searching for these dogs. And while they're at it, the boyfriend stumbles across this huge shelter, is the only way you could describe it. It's dome-shaped, and it's made out of huge, fallen trees and moss, covered in moss. And there's a very large opening in the center. Now, the curiosity got the better of him, so he decides to kind of peek in that den and see what's in there. He looked for the dogs, too. And as soon as he got his head poked in, he hears this real deep, guttural growl. So, of course, they turn tail and run. They don't want no part of it. And the dogs actually beat them to the house. So they must have come across this den, too, because the dogs were already there. Now, the next incident was Eric and Shelley. They like to sit on the front porch. There was a wraparound porch on this place, and in the evening times, they like to sit on this front porch and sip their coffee. Well, one night, both of them, it was Eric first, he just got this feeling that something else was out there with him. He felt a presence. So he told Shelley about it, and Shelley, she had one of those ultra bright flashlights, that she kept on the porch anyway. So she shone it out into the woods, into the forest, and she doesn't see anything at first. And she goes back to sipping her coffee. But it's not sitting right with Eric. He says it again. He's like, no, I still feel it. We need to get inside. Now, this time Shelley picks up her flashlight again, and when she shines it, she sees 3 sets of eye shine. 3 sets of eyes staring back at her from some kind of predator, because the eyes are facing towards the front and not in opposing directions. So it's definitely a predator. So she follows Eric's advice at this point, because when she shines her light even further, there's 2 more sets of eyes. So she knows that there's 5 creatures out there that are trying to do something. They get inside the house, and Eric starts making sure all the doors are locked, windows are locked, pushing furniture up against heavy stuff, and then they go to secure the second level because her daughter's up there. If they first go to check on the daughter, and she's up there asleep. As a matter of fact, they try to wake her up and let her know what's going on. Hey, there's some big critters out there. Come look. And she says, oh, wake me up if something really interesting happens. And she goes back to sleep. But from her daughter's bedroom window, there's a perfect vantage point, and you can see that these 5 creatures are bipedal. They're about 7 foot tall. They're all five in their gravel driveway, and that is the only access to this property. That's the only way in and the only way out is this gravel driveway. So it's not only like they're hunting in packs, but they're making strategies. They're coordinating, but they have hair instead of fur on the top of their heads, but it's very shaggy, unkempt. They have short, pointy ears. They have very long snouts, and they have very thin and muscular bodies, and their legs are like a kangaroo's, is what they said. And they have long claws and human-like heels, but long claws and human-like palms also. Well, they go to secure everything on the second level, and they also call the police. First thing they do is call 911. You know what 911 tells them? They first think it's a crank call. So they call back, and they try to convince them, no, this really is happening. And they tell them it's a bear, and just to keep all their doors and windows locked, and to call the forestry department. And that's what they do. Forestry or Fish and Game, I don't know, whatever it is in Maine, they call them, and they get the same answer. It's just a bear. Lock your doors. We'll be by there in the morning to check it out. So nobody's taking them seriously, and they know what they saw. And now these things they're like strategically around the house in all positions. And Eric decides that he's got to do something. He makes a mad dash for his truck. Like, he stays in the shadows, slips out his front door, and tries to make up to his truck to back up to the porch and everybody make a getaway. Well, that doesn't work out because the floodlight comes on, and he's just a sitting duck with it right under that floodlight. He forgot about his motion sensor security light, but it's a good thing that it did come on, because one of them had been sneaking up on him, and he just barely saw it in his peripheral, but the floodlight coming on made it take off and run the other direction. So he bolts back in the house, he drops his keys in the process. It's not looking good for the home team right now. So they end up barricading themselves in the house, and these things are scratching, pounding at the door. The roof is low hanging on one side, so the creatures get up on the roof, and you can hear them walking around up there. And they say these things are heavy. It's making the house vibrate. And this is a 100-year-old farmhouse. These things are built like a tank. But all night long, they're dealing with this, scratching on the windows, stomping all around on the wraparound porch. And they huddle up in one bedroom all together in the master bedroom. And finally, daybreak arrives, and the things disappear. Of course, the whole family was not in any hurry to go out there. But after about an hour, after it had been sunlight for an hour, they did go outside to investigate. And there were deep scratch marks all over that house. The doors, the window screens were shredded. The walls, they were just these deep gouges and scratch marks all around that property. And there were prints. Those human heel with claws on the end. So that's the Palmyra incident, sometimes called the Palmyra Werewolf or the Palmyra Dogmen. But that's been Jay's Haunted Appalachia for tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed the story. Please keep sending me those stories and suggestions, guys. And please like, share, follow, repost. I'm trying to grow the channel, so it really tickled me to death. And keep Appalachia haunted, y'all.